I've spent my whole life getting ready for extreme moments, but when that weather alert went off that morning, something in my gut was screaming that it was different. From my penthouse apartment at the top of the Windsor building, I watched as the clouds turned into a dark, threatening mass. In 15 years serving in special forces, I learned that being prepared is everything. That's why I turned an old Cold War bunker, hidden deep inside this fancy condo, into my own personal refuge. I've decked out every inch of it with the latest tech. Defense systems, advanced monitoring, artificial intelligence, my little underground empire. Little did I know that in just a few hours, as the storm closed in on the coast, my bunker would become the center of a battle that had nothing to do with nature. Samantha Winchester was about to find out that some places just aren't meant to be invaded. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. While I was doing one last check on the bunker's safety protocols, I got a notification from the surveillance system. Samantha Winchester, the CEO of Winchester Developments, was calling an emergency board meeting. Funny timing, considering she'd never shown any concern for the residents' security before. I quietly hacked into the meeting room cameras on my tablet. There she was, looking sharp in her gray blazer and gesturing with that authority that comes from being born into wealth. Michael Thompson, all suited up as always, agreed with everything she said. Nathan Parker and Tyler Scott, those businessmen who practically worship the ground she walks on, were also there. But it was Marcus Reed's presence that set off my internal alarm. I recognized his stance right away. An ex-Navy SEAL turned mercenary. Our paths nearly crossed on an operation in the Middle East. I cranked up the audio of the meeting through the ambient sound system I installed. Samantha was talking about extraordinary security measures and access to all the resources in the condo. Her eyes were shining in a way that was all too familiar to me. The same look I'd seen in targets trying to get near secret military sites. I turned off the tablet and started activating my secondary defense protocols. The bunker was already prepped for the cyclone, but now I had to get ready for a different kind of storm. As the wind started howling outside, I programmed the motion sensors in the maintenance tunnels and began checking the door locking system. Samantha might be a powerhouse in the corporate world, but she was about to learn that some territories can't be bought. The wind was now shaking the windows hard. On the bunker's main monitor, I was watching the cyclone approach via satellite images. While I was dialing in the final parameters on the air filter system, a silent alert flashed on the screen. Movement detected in the south maintenance tunnel. I quickly switched to the security cameras. Marcus Reed was leading the group, carrying a tactical backpack that probably had some low-grade explosives in it. Michael Thompson, clearly nervous, was clutching an old blueprint of the condo. Nathan and Tyler were right behind him, armed with industrial cutting tools. Samantha wasn't with them, typical of someone who likes to keep her hands clean. I activated the intercom, my voice echoing through the tunnels. "Hey, this area is off limits. You might want to rethink your next move." The group hesitated for a moment, but Marcus gestured for them to keep moving. Through the thermal cameras, I noticed they were following exactly the pattern of the original ventilation ducts. Clever, but not clever enough. I decided to let them go a little further. Every step they took led them deeper into my web. The pressure sensors in the floor were logging their exact positions while the AI system was calculating their probable routes. Michael kept referencing the blueprint, his hands trembling. He was looking for the main entrance to the bunker, but I had changed the whole original layout years ago. The sound of the storm was now deafening, even deep underground. Marcus stopped in front of a wall that, according to the old blueprint, was supposed to hold the bunker's entrance. He began setting up the explosive charges with military precision. I couldn't help but smile. They were about to open a false entrance I had prepared just for situations like this. I initiated the Delta containment sequence. Steel doors slid silently in the adjacent corridors, isolating the group in a controlled sector. The air conditioner started circulating a special blend that would keep them awake, but confused. Meanwhile, the bunker's real defenses were arming themselves. The storm outside might be unpredictable, but here, every variable was under my control. The controlled explosion echoed through the tunnels, just as planned. The dust hadn't even settled when Marcus pushed through the opening, followed by the others. Their faces showed a mix of triumph and apprehension as they stepped into what they thought was the main bunker. In reality, they'd walked into a containment area I designed specifically for intruders. Through the cameras, I watched as Samantha finally joined the group. She scanned the area with those calculating eyes of hers, probably already thinking about how much money she could make with a space like this. Little did she know she was just in the antechamber to the real complex. Impressive, right? My voice boomed over the speakers, making everyone jump. But I'm afraid none of you were invited to this party. Marcus immediately drew his weapon, trying to pinpoint where my voice had come from. Michael started sweating, realizing that the plan wasn't going his way. Nathan and Tyler exchanged glances, clearly regretting getting involved with this invasion. "Ashley, be reasonable," Samantha said, using my name as if she owned it. "With the storm coming, we need a proper shelter. This bunker is way too big for one person." I activated the UV light panels, revealing a labyrinth of laser sensors invisible to the naked eye. "Big enough to keep you all exactly where you are," I replied, as the secondary security doors slammed shut with a dull thud. Marcus tried to use his explosives on the new doors, but soon discovered that his detonators wouldn't work. The interference system I had installed blocked any wireless signal within a 50-meter radius. I could see his frustration grow as he realized he was dealing with someone who had anticipated his every move. "You can't hold us here forever," Samantha yelled, her composure starting to crack. "I have connections and influence." "Your connections don't work so well 30 meters underground," I shot back, while I tweaked the room's temperature to an unbearably uncomfortable level, though not dangerous. "And as for your influence, well, it stops where my technology begins." Michael, ever the lawyer, tried to make a case about constitutional rights and legal implications. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Look on the bright side," I said. "You wanted a shelter from the storm. Now you got one." On the monitors, I watched the group come to grips with their situation. Marcus, frustrated, punched a wall only to find out it was reinforced with a special alloy. Nathan and Tyler sat on the floor, finally realizing just how serious their mistake was. Samantha, however, kept her eyes locked on one of the cameras, as if she could reach me through it. The weather system indicated that the cyclone was still ramping up. I switched the monitors in the containment zone so they could see live footage of the storm. "Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest you get comfortable. The next 36 hours are going to be educational." I activated the full lockdown protocol, making sure they had access to basic supplies and bathroom facilities. After all, I'm not a monster. But while I was dialing in the final safety settings, I noticed something in Samantha's eyes that warned me. This wouldn't be our last battle. The storm outside might pass, but the hurricane she was planning to unleash on my life was only just beginning. The next few hours were a lesson in patience. I monitored the group on multiple systems while the cyclone battered the surface. Marcus kept hunting for weaknesses in the structure, his military skills evident in every calculated move. It was like watching a caged tiger, dangerous, but contained. Samantha switched between trying to negotiate and throwing out veiled threats. Her voice still had that controlled executive tone, but her hands trembled slightly whenever she mentioned her ties to politicians and influential businessmen. Through the audio system, I caught snippets of her whispering to Michael about lawsuits and ways to take down that arrogant ex-militarist. The main bunker, where I was, vibrated with each impact of the storm. The reinforced walls absorbed the blows while my systems monitored the cyclone's rising intensity. The screens showed streets turned into rivers, century-old trees ripped out like twigs. Keeping them locked up might have been drastic, but it probably saved their lives. After the 10th hour, Nathan and Tyler started showing signs of claustrophobia. Being forced into confinement was taking a toll on their boardroom-hardened minds that were used to luxury penthouses and imported cars. Michael, on the other hand, surprisingly stayed calm, maybe finally realizing that his role as a big-shot lawyer didn't mean much here. "We need to talk like adults," Samantha tried again, her voice resonating over the intercom. "I can make you a very rich woman, Ashley. Imagine the possibilities if we expanded this technology and built a network of premium bunkers for exclusive clients." I stayed silent. Through the thermal cameras, I watched Marcus approach a specific panel on the wall. He had correctly identified one of the main ventilation ducts, but what he didn't know was that every duct was equipped with biometric sensors and containment doors every meter. "Your silence isn't helping your case," Samantha continued, now in a more threatening tone. "When we get out of here, I'll make sure you never land a security contract on the entire East Coast again." I slightly adjusted the air mix, increasing the nitrogen level. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make you a bit drowsy. It was fascinating to watch how people who were used to being in control reacted when they lost it. On the monitoring screens, the cyclone data showed that the worst had passed. In a few hours, it would be safe to let them go. But first, I needed to make sure they learned the lesson. I activated a series of lights on the ceiling in the containment area, creating moving shadows that were downright disorienting. "What's that?" Tyler shouted, his fear crystal clear. "Just a reminder," I finally answered, "that technology isn't only about control, it's about consequences." Marcus stopped inspecting the duct, his trained eyes noticing the change in atmosphere. Samantha stood still, her face a mask of controlled fury. Michael began taking notes on his phone, probably already planning some legal strategy. The storm outside was starting to ease, but I knew a new one was about to form. Samantha Winchester wasn't the type to easily accept defeat. Her gaze through the camera said it all. This was just the beginning of a much bigger war. The final hours of lockdown were the most revealing. Fatigue started breaking down the carefully maintained social facades. I watched on the monitors as the group slowly split into their true selves. Nathan and Tyler huddled in a corner, murmuring how Samantha had manipulated them into this mess. Michael alternated between pretending to review documents on his dead phone and shooting nervous glances at Marcus. The ex-SEAL had stopped searching for exits and now sat in a strategic spot, with his back against the wall and his eyes locked on the main entrance. His military training kept him alert, even after so many hours. I detected in him a reluctant professional respect. He knew he was dealing with someone who was always several steps ahead. Samantha, on the other hand, was mesmerizing to watch. Her transformation was gradual. First, her impeccable posture began to sag. Then, her controlled tone gave way to bursts of barely contained anger. Finally, her veneer of civility completely cracked. "When I get out of here," she mumbled to herself, thinking the audio system wasn't picking up her whispers, "I'm going to destroy everything you built, Ashley. Every contract, every connection, every penny you have. You have no idea how powerful I am." I zoomed in on her face through the cameras. There was something in her eyes that reminded me of some commanders I'd known, a dangerous mix of wounded pride and thirst for revenge. But unlike on a battlefield where the rules are clear, Samantha operated in a gray area of corporate shadows and political influence. The weather system indicated it was time to end the lockdown. I initiated the release protocol, first normalizing the air composition. The lights gradually brightened, simulating sunrise. Over the speakers, I made my final announcement. "The storm is over. You'll be released in 5 minutes. Consider this experience a valuable lesson in respecting boundaries and private property." Marcus immediately stood up, positioning himself defensively. Michael started straightening his rumpled tie, trying to salvage some dignity. Nathan and Tyler practically sprinted to the door, like kids eager to end their detention. Samantha, however, stayed exactly where she was. Her steady gaze fixed on the main camera sent a clear message. War was declared. The doors opened with a hissing hydraulic sound. The fresh air from the main bunker rushed in, carrying that unmistakable scent of freedom. I watched as they left one by one, their footsteps echoing down the corridors that would guide them back to the surface. Samantha was the last to leave. She paused in the doorway, adjusted her blazer with precise movements, and without turning around said, "You're good, Ashley. Really good. But you just made the worst enemy possible. And unlike your fancy tech, my power doesn't have an off switch." I waited until everyone was out to start the decontamination and system reboot protocols. As the data from the last 36 hours was being stored, I thought over Samantha's words. She was right about one thing. This wasn't over. The storm outside might have passed, but a new one was forming on the horizon. A storm that wouldn't be contained by steel walls or security systems. The week after the storm, I felt the first tremors of Samantha's revenge. 3 of my biggest consulting contracts were mysteriously canceled. My name popped up on a blacklist of unreliable service providers, circulated among the top companies on the East Coast. It was like watching a coordinated attack unfold in slow motion. In my bunker, I was analyzing the patterns of her moves through multiple screens. Samantha was using her network of influence like a chessboard, moving pieces around strategically to trap me. Every lost deal, every closed door was part of her bigger plan. Michael Thompson, now clearly her legal enforcer, started filing a series of lawsuits questioning the legality of my facilities. Claims about risk to the condo's security and misuse of common property started coming in daily. But he had no idea that every modification I'd made to the bunker was meticulously documented and approved through military channels that Samantha couldn't touch. Marcus Reed completely vanished from the radar, a move that worried me more than the legal attacks. Ex-SEALs don't just disappear with no reason. I activated extra security protocols and began tracking unusual movement patterns around the building. Nathan and Tyler, meanwhile, tried a different approach. I got invites to private meetings, with promises of lucrative deals if I reconsidered my position. It was almost amusing to see how much they really believed they could buy me off after everything. During a routine sweep of the building's security systems, I detected sophisticated attempts to hack in. Someone was trying to map my electronic infrastructure. The pattern of the attack suggested top-level professionals, the kind of experts only someone with Samantha's resources could hire. "You really want to play this game?" I muttered as I bolstered my digital defenses. Years in special forces taught me that sometimes the best defense is a strategic counterattack. I began activating dormant protocols I'd set up years ago. Small fragments of code hidden in corporate systems, backdoors in supposedly secure networks. Not to attack, but to observe. Soon enough, I was mapping every move Samantha made, every shady meeting, every questionable money transfer. The irony wasn't lost on me. In the while she was trying to take me down using her power and influence in the outside world, I was building a detailed picture of her vulnerabilities right inside my bunker. The technology she so craved was quickly becoming her biggest threat. Then a notification popped up on my main screen. A meeting was scheduled between Samantha and a well-known political lobbyist. Based on her previous moves, she was planning something big. Something that wouldn't be stopped by steel walls or security systems. "Let the games begin," I said to the screens surrounding me. The battle had changed fields. It was no longer about a bunker or a storm, but about which side could hold on when all the secrets came out. And if there was one thing I learned in Special Forces, it was that secrets are the most powerful weapon in any war. 3 days later, the first signs of Samantha's plan started to materialize. A leaked news story in the local press questioned the security of the Windsor building, specifically mentioning unauthorized structural modifications. My name wasn't directly mentioned, but the hints were as clear as day. Through my monitoring system, I noticed an unusual movement of technicians around the building. They were supposedly doing routine inspections, but their equipment and scanning patterns hinted they were after something specific, probably mapping the access points I'd used to modify the bunker. During a nighttime check of the external cameras, I picked up Marcus in a hushed conversation with the building's head of security. I amplified the audio and caught fragments about emergency protocols and access to the main systems. Samantha was methodically setting up her board. Michael ramped up the legal attacks, this time targeting the permits I'd secured. Somehow, documents started disappearing from municipal records. Lucky for me, I kept quantum backups of every permit, every approval, every digital signature. But it was a notification from my AI system that really caught my attention. It detected encrypted communication patterns coming from Samantha's apartment to various spots around the city. The volume and frequency suggested something big was on the way. Sitting in my command center, surrounded by screens tracking this silent war from every angle, I realized I had to change my strategy. I couldn't just be reactive. I needed to make Samantha understand that she was messing with forces way beyond her control. I fired up a sequence of commands on my main terminal. If she wanted war, I was about to show her what real technological power meant. As my fingers danced across the keyboard, a smile crept onto my face. Samantha Winchester was about to learn that some systems can't be bought or manipulated. They have to be respected. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this. My counterattack started quietly. While Samantha was busy orchestrating her public assaults, I rolled out a series of protocols I developed during my years in Special Forces. First, small glitches began affecting her personal systems. Nothing major, just enough to plant seeds of doubt. Her digital records started showing subtle inconsistencies. Important meetings mysteriously disappeared from her calendar, and crucial emails were rerouted straight to spam. Her carefully built digital empire was beginning to crack. Marcus was the first to notice. During a secret meeting with Samantha, which I was monitoring through the building's audio system, he warned about the possibility of a tech counterstrike. She brushed off his concerns with that trademark disdain, but I caught a hint of hesitation in her voice. Michael, always the cautious one, started questioning the strategy. The lawsuits he'd filed against me were encountering unexpected resistance. Documents he tried to suppress kept popping up at the worst moments. His reputation in the legal circles was starting to take a hit. I watched it all unfold on my screens, like a chess match where every move was calculated to perfection. Samantha still held her power pose, but her eyes betrayed increasing worry. She was beginning to understand that her influence had limits. The final straw came when her own home security systems started showing anomalies. Nothing overtly threatening, just subtle reminders that her tech wasn't as impregnable as she thought. Back in my bunker, monitoring her reactions through multiple data feeds, I realized the game was changing. Samantha Winchester, the powerful CEO used to controlling everything and everyone, was tasting digital impotence for the first time. Yet I knew that look on her face. the same one I'd seen during our lockdown. She wasn't going to give up easily. This was merely the first phase of a battle that promised to get a lot more intense. The question now was, how far was she willing to go to regain control? Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to get access to more stories like this.